If there's a jam band bump to start the show, it's going to be a good day. And then right when I say that, the microphone problem that I had yesterday is recurring, where I can't get my microphone.
Well, you can't have everything. You can't get the banger bump off the top of the show and have the microphone work at the same time.
You talk while I
it's the law of averages.
Adjust the microphone.
And it's why we can't have nice things. We can't have perfect things, right? Like we can have good starts, bad starts, but it can't all come together.
If you're watching on YouTube, you see that I'm struggling, but I think we're good. I can't see you now. The way I have it, I can't see you as well.
If I move my microphone this way.
No, I don't think that's going to help,
I've got a little more mobility.
I don't think that's going to. I'll just have to look at you kind of askance. Is that the right word? Is that the right usage of askance?
I couldn't tell you.
It is now.
Can you spell askance?
I probably can. A-S, I think it's ask ants, A-N-C-E, askance.
You need to pull that up.
Yeah,
it's like the Scripps National Spelling Bee. I got spelling fever.
I'm pretty sure I used it correctly. Anyway, alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips, and I can see him. He's over there. And wherever you might be, we appreciate you being with us. We'll talk some Cruton coming up in just a little bit. We don't do tons of that in the offseason. Once it starts to ramp up, though, it's time. And from all accounts, Shane Beamer and his football staff are doing a pretty good job of Cruton at this point. Our good friend Wes Mitchell will join us coming up bottom of the hour. Gamecocks in on some pretty big names. And the national recruiting analyst at On3, where Gamecock Central and others are affiliated, really feels good about some of the opportunities Carolina has in the coming days to pick up some big commitments. Now, once you get them, you got to hold them. That's usually the harder part.
Yeah, unfortunately, the commitment, like the high school commitment in college athletics nowadays, is like akin to seeing somebody at a bar you went to high school with but haven't talked to in a decade and say, yeah, we should absolutely get a drink sometime. You verbally committed to getting a drink or hanging out with that person sometime, but deep down inside, you know those plans are very subject to change.
Yes. That's a good analogy, man. It's a good analogy. For those also watching on YouTube, I am wearing my 2021 Atlanta Braves World Champion T-shirt. I do this not in any celebratory mood. I'm like David Putty in Seinfeld. I didn't paint my face, but got to support the team. I'm trying anything at this point, man. Anything. The Braves looked like crap again last night. Spencer Strider is trying, but he doesn't have the control.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah, man. Yoda was right. But I'm trying. I can't figure out if the Braves have enough to really make a good trade either. Because right now, when I last looked anyway, I think the Braves were like 25th in minor league ranking in terms of big name prospects ready to and you don't and do you, as the Braves, do you want to give up that, not give up on them, but just give it up in order to get somebody who's major league ready now? Look, this team should be better than it is. In fact, whatever analytics you like to look at, I saw something from David O'Brien yesterday, who's on the beat for The Athletic covering the Braves. Atlanta should be like 5 games over 500 with what they have.
Oh, for sure.
And they're not.
Yeah, you have the team right now that, on paper, should be good enough to contend for a World Series title.
Yes.
That's why you were one of the favorites.
Yeah, going into the season.
A betting favorite?
Atlanta was the number 2 betting favorite for a world championship. Yeah. And now, I don't even know what the odds are to make the playoffs.
Talk about playoffs?
So, now, I've been reminded by a few people, because I'm not, look, we have a couple of listeners, and you know who you are, that live and die on every Atlanta Braves game. And I don't do that. As big a fan as I am, I don't do that. But I was reminded yesterday that going into August of 2021, hence the T-shirt, Atlanta was 2 games under 500. But, Elijah Campbell, the Mets and the Phillies were not very good that year. This year, the Mets and Phillies are a lot better.
Yeah, the Phillies looked pretty good last night. Bryce Harper came back from injury and immediately hit a home run.
Ask me if I like Bryce Harper.
Do you like Bryce Harper?
Nope.
Do a lot of people outside of Philadelphia like Bryce Harper? There you go.
Not even a little bit.
I don't like Bryce Harper.
Not even a little bit. But anyway, so I'm trying. We will get into maybe here in just a second, and there's even some funny, not funny, but it's funny that there's some news coming out of the Big Ten about this. So I have often said, and I'm glad that now that we are working together and have been for, how long have we been working together now?
Since
Year and a half?
October 23.
Yeah.
So that is
a little over a year and a half. When there are problems with sports, college sports primarily, college football primarily in that realm too, we like to not just complain about it. A lot of people will just complain. That's fine. That's fine. Actually, it's not. But a lot of people will just complain. We will complain, but we will then offer you a solution. Now, the solution may be, really, really plausible and doable. At times, the solution may be completely just outlandish. For instance, I have a solution to most of the world's problems. Make me king of the world. But that's unlikely.
I'll take the paycheck that comes with that.
That's unlikely, right? But if I said, hey, why don't we just make college football scheduling all Power 4 schools against each other, and then we don't have to worry about cupcake this and FCS that and who played whom and whatever else. We can just kind of have more of a real look into who everybody is. That seems doable. And that's what we've done today.
We put the brains together there.
So now Elijah, I will admit, Elijah did he did more heavy lifting than I thought was coming, which is excellent.
Surprised you.
You did.
The prompt this morning inspired me.
And we've had some different things, and I'd love for you guys to weigh in on this. 803-404-6100. I have thrown a Twitter poll out as well. If you'd like, would you be in favor of this? Listen, we had a discussion last week, and I have said, and I even cited something from Jim Delaney, the former commissioner of the Big Ten, nearly 10 years ago. You know what Jim Delaney wanted to do 10 years ago, Elijah Campbell? He wanted to rid Big Ten conference scheduling from FCS teams.
I like it.
Didn't go far.
He tried.
But he did. Because he knew business-wise it would be better for everybody to do it. It's not slamming FCS schools. And again, we had a couple of fans of one FCS school last week just really only make it about their school versus South Carolina. And without being too much of a jerk, it's almost, my retort back is almost a broken clock is right twice a day kind of a thing.
But they'll have that forever.
So, but it's, and again, make them spring games. Pay them a check. And if nothing else, you know what? If you want to set up some kind of fund that just gets them paid, because they have good football, but they don't belong on Power 4 schedules. The Power 4 should play the Power 4. That is now what I am firmly behind as a longtime 54-year-old college football fan. I want the power conferences to only play the power conferences. That's the level that my favorite school is in, and its conference, and another school in this state, and its conference, and so on and so on. That's, as Hyman Roth said in Godfather 2, this is the business we've chosen. We should not be stepping down levels just for the sake of a virtually guaranteed win. And again, FCS versus Power 4 is less than a 4% win percentage since that division was created in the late 70s. Less than 4%. The point being, it's never really a competitive game. Yes, every once in a while you get an upset. Yes, Appalachian State beat Michigan. And yes, Citadel fans, you have beaten South Carolina twice. I get it. I get it. You know what, Elijah? I thought about this morning, too. You weren't alive, but I was. Chaminade of the NAIA, a very small school in Hawaii, once beat mighty Virginia, led by Ralph Sampson.
Number 1 Virginia.
Should we have NAIA schools on power conference athletic schedules, not just basketball? Should an NAIA team be able to play Alabama or Georgia in football? Because once upon a time, an NAIA school beat a really good basketball team?
There's a reason they call that game the greatest upset never seen.
Yeah.
And now all these games are televised. They're here to make money.
And Virginia went out there not paying attention. And you know what? It didn't hurt Virginia. It was no big deal. It was basically a glorified exhibition. That was the old Maui or whatever tip-off.
That game inspired what became the Maui.
Yeah. But basically, I think Terry Holland just decided to take a really good team on a nice little preseason trip to Hawaii. Why wouldn't you?
Very good book about that.
So the point is, we should only have Power 4 versus Power 4. That's my feeling. And I wish, again, RIP Pac-12. I wish we could say that Power 5. And if we needed to blend a few of the old Pac-12 schools that didn't make the cut back into the fall, I guess we only have 2 of those, right? Only 2 didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
So if we had to find some way to bring Washington State and Oregon State back into the fold, and maybe along with them bring Memphis, San Diego State. Who else?
Boise State.
Boise, sure. At least in football.
Fresno State.
Fresno, probably. Yeah, why not? Maybe even a couple of other American Conference teams that are pretty good. East Carolina.
Boy, putting East Carolina in the Pac-12 would be...
Well, not in the Pac-12. Just finding a way for them to be, a few other teams. I don't. Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you don't need to.
Maybe just merge the Pac-12 and the Mountain West.
But let me read. I'll read the Twitter poll for you, and then we can do that, and we'll come back and Elijah can give you a little bit of what we've done. We've made one for Carolina. Elijah's made basically a schedule for everybody in the SEC, which I think is fantastic. And he came up with a little bit of a different approach than I did, but I like it because it perhaps offers some pretty decent balance. But what I asked today on Twitter is the following. As we continue discussing future conference or college football scheduling, would you be in favor of a format where each Power 4 school plays 9 conference games with the other 3 being a game against a school from each of the remaining leagues? And as an example, you'd play 9 SEC games for folks around here, and then 1 each, obviously, from the Big 10, Big 12, ACC. Would you be in favor of that? 3 choices: sure, nope, and depends on the selection. And with that, it's a little open-ended, and I figure some people might mean, well, is it a guaranteed rotation? Are you just selecting some teams for me to play every year? No, we'd base it on rankings and a few other things, and again, try to provide you with some balance. 803-404-6100. Weigh in on this. We'll come back on the other side. Elijah will give you an early look at what he's done. I'll give you what I think Carolina's schedule could look like next year if we did it the way I'm thinking about it. And Wes Mitchell coming up in about 20 minutes or so, talking Gamecock football recruiting. A busy Wednesday postgame show rolls on. You ever get home from work and you're like, man, I need a little something different, something that I just don't have right now. Might that something be a hot tub out back where you can just come home and just soak away the cares of the day? Well, Griffin Pools and Spas is ready to help you out, and so are the folks at Bullfrog Spas. Listen, get in to Griffin Pools and Spas. Again, just steps away from the Lake Murray Dam in Lexington, where they've been for years and years, and see for yourself what you can do. These Bullfrog Spas actually let you personalize every seat with their jetpack therapy system. So you and your guests and your family enjoy that perfect massage exactly the way you like it. And they can build in a sound system with Bluetooth connectivity so you can listen to some tunes right there from the backyard in your Bullfrog Spa. Check them out. Go see for yourself what these things look and feel like, and check them out online too at griffinpoolsandspas.com. 18 minutes after 3 o'clock here on a Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Talking college football's future. Ryan Day, the head coach of Ohio State, the reigning national champion.
Not to be confused with Ryan Knight.
That's right. Has said he would like to see future scheduling include 4 automatic qualifying spots, or future models of the college football playoff have 4 automatic qualifying spots for the Big Ten. Quote, we're in the Big Ten, and we have 18 teams and some of the best programs in the country. I feel like we deserve at least 4 automatic qualifiers. He added you would have had at least a team or 2 in the college football playoff from out there, meaning the old Pac-12. So it only makes sense when you have 18 teams, especially the quality of teams that represent the Big Ten. He added that a model with more automatic spots will benefit the sport because it incentivizes, and here we go, stronger non-conference scheduling, especially given discrepancies in conference scheduling models. And that's one of the things that Elijah and I are doing today. This is, if nothing else, a thought exercise, but this comes from a place of genuine love of the sport. And look, college football.
And love for his conference. Most
yeah,
importantly.
no, I'm talking about you and me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't fear for. I've seen some doom and gloom stuff on Twitter. This is ruining college football. No, it's not. No, it's not. College football's fine. And ultimately, like anything else in a free market society, the problems that we see in front of us right now will work themselves out. I don't know exactly what form that's going to take. But I do have just faith in an overall, and when I say a faith in an overall system, I don't necessarily even mean, because NCAA doesn't run college football. It just sort of administers the rules. But I don't mean faith in Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti or Jim Phillips or whatever. I just mean faith in that we've always had change. And with change sometimes, especially when there is tremendous change all at once, it's a little harder to navigate. And that's where we are right now. But again, really smart, well-paid people allowed this to happen. All right? And now, the rest of us are having to watch their mess get fixed. And we'll see if people that are now in those jobs, because that's who we're turning to, it's still collegiate leaders. We just have to hope that new collegiate leaders that have the same title as the old collegiate leaders don't want the old collegiate leaders' ways to continue. Some of them do, apparently. But a lot of them don't. Anyway, the biggest thing here that I come around to is I want better schedules. And by better, I know some of you might mean, well, Jay, a better schedule to me is one where my team wins a lot of games. Then you're in like Kentucky's boat.
It's a Kentucky thought right there.
Because Kentucky is scared to play Louisville even, apparently. If push comes to shove, they won't play Louisville anymore. And I've said it many, many times, but I'll say it again. Y'all, just think about that for a second. And that's not even me trying to be a jerk towards Louisville football. But if losing to Louisville keeps you up at night in football, then, what are you doing?
It's misguided anxiety because, buddy, losing to Louisville is not why you don't make the college football playoff every year. You miss the college football playoff every year because you're Kentucky.
Yeah. Yeah. So Elijah and I came up with something that would allow for the Power Four to play each other only and also provide real balance. Now, in some cases, and South Carolina Clemson is a prime example, you may not be able to see a rotation of a certain conference. And I'm going to toss it to Elijah because we have the 4 that currently exist, the 4 SEC versus ACC state rivalries that currently exist, and as Greg Sankey said, are facilitated for, if you will. And we've added a 5th one that we believe needs to come back yesterday.
Yes.
God, yes. So that's what we did. Let's start with South Carolina.
Yes. So preserving those rivalries was my first priority. And our man Bill called in earlier, and that was like his question going into the, to the break was, well, what does that do to the Clemson rivalry? I said, fear not, because I have a plan where that is enshrined into the schedule every year.
Right.
Every single year. We will protect those in-state rivalries because part of what we want to do is preserve the cool stuff about college football while blending in with a solution that makes sense and makes the committee's job a lot easier.
Yep.
So when I wrote out the names of the 16 teams in the SEC and gave everybody an ACC, Big 10, or Big 12 game. Now, the first thing I did was write those rivalries in, because we're not going to get rid of them.
Right.
So the ACC team for South Carolina in this hypothetical every year will be Clemson. Every single year, no exceptions. For Georgia, Georgia Tech. For Florida, Florida State. For Kentucky, Louisville. And then for Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. That will be their Big 12 team.
Bedlam needs to come back.
Every single
And that's the
year.
one I referenced. That needs to come back. Yeah, there's zero reason for that game to not be played.
And then for everybody else, I gave, when it comes to assigning conferences and teams from those conferences to play, I gave you a 1 through 6 team in one conference based by the previous season standings.
Yep.
A 7 to 11 or 12 from another conference, and then a bottom tier, bottom 4 or 5 team from another league. And I rotated that out, sometimes at random, but I eventually got to where I had a little rotation going. So for
And you
South
have to
Carolina,
provide for some level of randomness just because that's the
Yes.
nature of things. And you can't just have it.
balance.
Yeah.
I can't just give Georgia the champion of the 3 other conferences every year.
Right.
You can't do that because then then that would be de-incentivizing playing really good games. That actually would.
Yeah.
Right. So for South Carolina, you got Clemson, right? For the Big Ten, I decided to give them one of the lower tier teams in the Big Ten. I gave them UCLA.
Okay.
And then Texas Tech in the Big 12 as a mid-tier team. So the non-conference games plus 9 SEC games, you'd have Clemson, UCLA, Texas Tech.
Let me pause you because what I did, and I think Elijah's provides the better balance overall. For South Carolina, I took Clemson, obviously, but my initial thought when we've talked about this before was, to Elijah's point, just go by the standings and do your best to just, like last year, South Carolina officially finished 6th in the Southeastern Conference. In the Big 12, that would put South Carolina against Texas Christian. And in the Big 10, that would put South Carolina against Iowa. Those are the teams that officially finished in that slot last year. Now, Clemson obviously finished 2nd in the ACC, but there's an exception there. And by the way, just for the sake of the discussion, we were talking about it, Iowa State. If we were to do this for everybody, that's an intra, an interconference matchup that would need to be preserved and taken care of. So Iowa out of the Big 12 would see Iowa State on a regular basis as well. So I looked at it like that. But the more we thought about it, Elijah, coming up with, well, hey, providing some balance. And look, it's based on last year. But next year, you never know.
Yep. And for teams that have that interstate out-of-conference rivalry that you play every year, since that's set in stone, whatever that team finishes will be the first base, really, to get to determine how good are the teams in the other two.
Yeah.
So like Georgia, for instance, they will get Georgia Tech from the ACC every single year. Georgia Tech finished slightly outside that top tier in the ACC, not by much. So for the Big Ten opponent for Georgia, they will get a top tier Big Ten team, which I gave them Penn State. So we'd have a Georgia-Penn State game.
That'd be fun.
And then I gave them a bottom tier Big 12 game. And I gave them one pretty low on the bottom tier because Penn State's a pretty big ask, and Georgia Tech was on the higher end of that middle tier. So I gave them Houston.
Okay.
And then for Florida
Andre
State.
Ware ain't walking through that door.
He ain't walking through that door. I'm afraid he is not. Hakeem Olajuwon's not either. But for Florida, because Florida State was so bad, they get, obviously, the teams they play from the Big 10 and the Big 12 will be higher up in those tiers. So for Florida, I gave them Iowa State out of the Big 12, who was a Big 12 title game participant.
They finished 2nd.
And then they get Michigan from the Big 10.
Look at that. And even if it's just name only, that's still
great helmet game.
Without meaning to, if you will, you also gave the television execs exactly what they want. Because a Florida-Michigan game, even if they're both outside the top 25, which they probably wouldn't be, but if they were.
Even if Florida was the 4 and 8ers instead of the Gators,
you're still going to get a good, healthy audience to watch that game. We'll come back around with more. What do y'all think? Again, I want to hear from fans as much as anything, because more often than not, even if fans know they want to see their team win some games, you get the idea these days that what fans would rather have is better matchups. But better matchups, and to Ryan Day's point, and to Greg Sankey's point, and Tony Petitti's point, some guarantees, or at least some hope that that's not going to kill your opportunity when you lose, because somebody's going to lose those games.
And because you don't have to rely on a metric, which I guarantee you nobody in the room of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee understands how strength of schedule is comprised.
Right, yeah. But
you can understand a conference's record versus another league.
Yeah.
That's easier to understand.
We'll come back around to this in just a little bit. Hit me up on Twitter if you want to answer the poll or leave any comments there too. But we'll switch gears, because you know what? You got to have players to play these games. And you want better players to really have a playoff opportunity. And South Carolina seems to be headed in that direction. Wes Mitchell will join us with the latest on Shane Beamer's recruiting efforts when the postgame show returns. Time to talk some Gamecock football recruiting. Always a pleasure to have Wes Mitchell on the program. He's a regular part of what we do all the time now. And he and Clark both have just basically decided to snub this program on a pretty regular basis.
Hey, they talk to me every day. You're chopped liver, buddy.
I know. It's like I didn't even know them when they were just kids. But hey, at least today, Wes has decided to come on the program. How are you?
I'm good. Well, hey, I heard one of you averages 29 yards per play as an offensive coordinator, so
Yes.
one of you doesn't. So sorry, Jay.
The stats are the stats, Jay. I'm sorry. And what Wes said is factually correct.
It is factually correct. It is. It is fact. That is not an opinion. I'm working on it, Wes.
One of you may be talking about that for the rest of their lives, but
Yes.
it's okay. I'd get mileage out of it as well.
Oh, it's on the business. It's on the business card.
It might
Soon
be
enough.
tattooed on my chest.
Yeah, I was going to say it could be permanently ensconced in other places. We shall see. Shane was on the program Friday. I know, and I appreciate you listening because I know you did kind of a transcript of it on the website, Wes. But he did say then too, and I know he wasn't joking, but it's kind of funny. 23 straight days of working between camps, recruiting visits, weekends, etc. The staff is very busy, and now your colleague at On 3, Steve Wiltfong, really seems to believe that the efforts are paying off. Let's just kind of start a little bit with, when I ask you what's different about how they recruit, Wes, I don't know how much better it is than some others. So I'm not really going for that kind of thing with different, but just tell us what it's like from what you gather from the kids, their families, their coaches, about how Shane and his staff go about their recruiting business.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost is just that Shane is going to be involved in every aspect, of an official visit. And so, you might think, well, that's going to be the case everywhere, but it isn't always the case that the head coach is, like, directly involved in every little thing. Some places it's more like the assistant coaches kind of recruit to the head coach's strengths, basically. But if you look at some of the videos, some of the photo shoot stuff that's out there from the guys who were on campus this past weekend, you'll see Shane right in there taking photos with them. You'll see him doing poses. You'll see him introducing the guys, once they've dressed out as a Gamecock for the first time. So I do think there's a certain just genuine element to it. Kind of one of the guys that was in, Carter Meadows, he's a 5-star prospect, one of the top players in the country, highly, highly regarded guy. And, he said, hey, it didn't really feel like a program. It just felt more like a family to me while he was on campus. And so, some of that stuff gets thrown around, culture, family, it gets cliched a little bit, but you can certainly tell that that's what Shane Beamer has always wanted his program to be about. And I think these kids, their families, they do sense it when you talk to them after they take these official visits.
Let's talk about some of the names real quick. Landon Duckworth, a 4-star quarterback, and Elijah mentioned to me, man, if you're battling Mississippi and Lane Kiffin for a big-time quarterback prospect, you got to like who that kid is. And, again, your colleague Steve Wiltfong now kind of, at least here in June, Wes, crystal balling the Gamecocks for that young man. Tell us more about him and how much work there is left to do.
Yeah, this is a guy people who have followed recruiting will remember. This is a chance to go full circle. He was committed to South Carolina way back in the beginning of his process and just I think realized he committed way too soon and was originally recruited by Dow Loggins. Now you've seen Mike Shula kind of take over this recruitment. And, Carolina offered some other quarterbacks for this 2026 class, but Duckworth kind of emerged as Shula's guy, like his top target. So it kind of became a thing where it almost was like they just went all in. Like, hey, we feel good about Cutter Woods coming up as a true freshman. You always have the portal. And it felt kind of like they were just like, it's almost Duckworth or bust at this point. Like, this is our guy we want. Let's put our energy, let's put our effort into recruiting and landing this kid. And so they kind of, I don't want to say they fell off, but they were maybe a little bit behind some other schools after he decommitted and he took a bunch of visits. But they got him back on campus a couple of months ago, and that was when the momentum really kicked back in again. So they've got a little bit of that coming in. He's on campus this weekend. That's one of about 4 visits I think he has on the books. That'll be his second. 2 more coming up. I wouldn't say South Carolina is quite at the finish line yet. I think Ole Miss is still lurking sometimes I think fans read the predictions and they're like, oh, that means it's done deal, it's happening. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I do think South Carolina probably feels pretty good about where they are, probably as good as they have in a long time about where they are with Duckworth. And like I said, man, like this is the guy they've wanted. He's probably the closest you're going to see in this class to having a skill set that sort of fits what we've seen from a Lenore Sellers at South Carolina.
Wes, I'm a big fan of the BOGO deal. And sometimes when I go grocery shopping, if I see that I can buy something and get another one free, even if I don't need the other one, I will get the other one because I know I'm getting it for free. But it looks like Shane Beamer and this coaching staff right now just might have a really good buy one, get one with a pair of defensive linemen in North Carolina with Andrew and Aiden Harris. What do you know about those two right there and how they both kind of project at the next level, especially considering they, like Duckworth, have been predicted to end up landing at South Carolina?
Yeah, and I would say, first of all, I think South Carolina is a little bit maybe closer to the finish line, so to speak, there with the two of them in terms of very realistically could have them in the boat and have them committed soon. They are both going to be on campus this weekend. And so Aiden is being recruited as a defensive tackle to South Carolina. Andrew being recruited actually more of like an off-the-ball linebacker, even though you'll see him listed as an edge a lot of places. South Carolina wants him kind of in that bigger linebacker role. And they're both just guys that have played together, obviously, their entire lives and have been outstanding for Weddington. Aiden's a little bit more of the higher recruited guy. You'll see him a lot of places have him top 10, top 5 among defensive tackles in the country. So he's a little bit, more of the guy that's been more highly recruited, but they're both outstanding sort of front seven players, difference makers, have offers from everybody. And, South Carolina has traditionally, it's been a little while, but they have had success with twins in the past. Of course, people remember the Lindsey brothers, the Brinkley brothers. Jay, I was trying to remember, like those are the two that pop in my mind. Not saying you're a little bit older than me, but you are a little bit older than me, Jay. So I was trying to remember if there were some other Gamecock twins over the years that have starred for South Carolina. Obviously, the Brinkleys are like the.
Yeah, I can't think of twins. I mean, I would have immediately gone to the Lindsays and Cap and Jap. Yeah, I can't recall. I'd have to go back, but if there are, Wes, it might be where one didn't do much and one did. But I'll.
Yeah.
I can think of the Dozier twins in basketball. I got those. Terry
and there's been some brothers like. Shamir Jeffrey ended up playing for Carolina a few years after Alshon. Obviously didn't make the impact Alshon did, but there have been some brothers over the years. But, it's kind of rare and kind of cool. It'll be a very cool story, I feel like, if these two guys do end up at South Carolina together. And in particular, you look at the fact that Aiden plays defensive tackle. That's a spot that I think is very important for Carolina to land some difference-making high school guys in this class. So that would be a big get for them, a couple big gets, but a big get from a just needs standpoint as well.
One last thing that's not recruiting, but because there's really nothing that could happen right now, I suppose, to help. But Wes, worst-case scenario for the current team, if Rasul Faison is not granted his year of eligibility, what does that mean for the running back room? Will there be an addition at any point portal-wise, or are you just you just got to go with who's on the roster?
You never say never in today's college football world. I think it's going to be tough. You're certainly not going to be able to go out and add a guy with Faison's ability, at this late juncture in the process. So could you maybe go find a depth guy? Never say never, but I think it's going to be tough. I think that would put a tremendous amount of I don't want to say pressure, but you're all of a sudden you're looking at Matt Fuller, someone who I'm actually incredibly high on his ability, though. I still think Matt Fuller is going to end up being an impact guy for South Carolina during his time in Columbia. That maybe speeds up that process a little bit. You'd have to get Jordan Howell ready, maybe quicker than expected. But yeah, I think they really need for that not to be the scenario to happen. If Faison is good to go and cleared, then I think you can feel pretty good about those four guys in your rotation. If he's not in there, then we see it all the time, that running back position is such a physically demanding spot. You can go into a game and be fine with two or three guys. It's very hard to go into a season and be fine, with three guys.
Yeah. Good stuff as always, man. We appreciate you. Wes Mitchell, GC, to follow on Twitter. And, again, catch his work, Chris Clark's, on the recruiting and so much more around Gamecock football at GamecockCentral.com. We'll see you soon. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thanks. Y'all have a good one.
Lots more to do here. Will you quiz me on the other side? Is that what we're doing?
I can.
All right, let's find out. All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes of our first hour. Coming up next hour, more on Elijah and my plan to save college football from itself by giving the fans and the execs and the players what they want, which is better scheduling.
I like to call this the scheduling renaissance.
That's right.
The
That's
college football scheduling renaissance.
That's what we're here for. We're here to fix things. We'll get into that, plus Jay or Nay. All coming up next hour. And I'll read you a quote from Jim Delaney of the Big Ten next hour on some of this. But in the meantime,
OVC commissioner, too.
Yeah, that's right. And he played basketball for Dean Smith.
Very well accomplished
at the University of North Carolina back in the day. All right. Elijah quizzes me on, and Wes just basically called me out for being old.
He did.
I can't think of any other football twins, but I was thinking quickly back in my memory banks and came up, obviously, with Perry and Terry Dozier. So, but yeah, the Lindsays.
Half credit, yeah.
The Lindsays and Cap and Jap. They were good. Jasper Brinkley was good, man.
Very good.
He was good.
Very good.
Yeah. All right, what you got?
Do you remember October 26, 2013?
October 26, 2013. Is that the Missouri game?
That would be the Missouri game. That was the day that South Carolina went to fifth-ranked Missouri and handed them their first loss of the year after trailing 17-0 after 3 quarters. But how much of this game do you remember, Jay Phillips?
All right, let's see.
Who scored the touchdown in overtime? South Carolina did score 17 points in that fourth quarter to push it to OT. The game went to 2 overtimes. Both teams scored a touchdown in the first overtime. Who scored the touchdown?
That wasn't Ellington.
Was it not Ellington? I'm asking you.
Well, did Ellington get the touchdown to tie the game?
Or did he get it in overtime? This is a question I'm asking
I
you.
can't, man. All right, I know Ellington in the corner from Connor, because Connor had to come in with a crack in his back because Dylan just didn't have it that day, or at least Steve thought that Connor needed to do it, and Connor did it. Ellington, now I'm getting confused.
The final answer is Ellington.
Ellington.
It is Bruce Ellington. Way to go.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned Connor Shaw.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite games in the history of college football.
Yeah.
Not because it was just a great game, but it's not often you get 2 quarterbacks on the same team throw for 200 yards each.
Yeah.
Who threw for more?
Well, I'll say Dylan just because I think Dylan played longer. So, but man, the way Connor came in and just like reorchestrated everything.
I can give you a hint as to who threw more passes.
Okay.
Connor Shaw threw 29 passes. Dylan Thompson threw 27.
Golly.
Does that change your answer?
I'll still say Dylan.
He says Dylan. And Dylan would be correct. Dylan threw for 222. Connor threw for 201.
Okay.
And I still, to this day, don't know if I can think of any other game where 2 quarterbacks on the same team both threw for 200 yards.
Yeah.
All right. Over under. Bruce Ellington catches in that game, setting that at 9.5.
Oh, wow. Under?
He says under. It was over. He caught 10 passes. He was not the only Gamecock to catch 10 passes as well. Mike Davis out of the backfield.
Yeah, Mike
caught 10
Mike
for 99.
Such a good 2013. He was good that year. And then that kid doinked the kick, man. I still know that kid missed that kick. But he did. That was man. That was one of my best post-game shows in this business ever.
Oh, I can imagine.
That was fun. Hour 2 coming up. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the Postgame Show coming to you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, South Carolina, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. We were just reminiscing a little bit more, at least from my own perspective, about that Missouri game. Back then, this isn't a brag. I'm just being factual. I did 17 years worth of Gamecock Network stuff. But for road games, I did postgame. In home games, I did pregame only. But I remember, I can't remember where we were for our pregame show, but Brent Johnson and I would do our postgame shows from the studio. We were still across the river that year. We didn't move over into this building until 2015. So we were still across the river over in Casey. But my wife had something to do for her job that night, and I had my girls at home, so it was kind of quiet around that. And the game was, for a while, as many of you remember, and Elijah just pointed out, it was not good. And that was, it was a very good South Carolina team, and it was a very good Missouri team. That was Missouri's only conference loss, and Carolina went 6-2 in
SEC
conference.
East champs.
Yeah,
Missouri.
2 years back to back, man. It's crazy. So that particular night, I was by myself basically watching that game, and I was like making my notes and preparing for a disheartening post-game show.
Preparing for it.
And again, here came Connor, and here came the Gamecocks, and then here came the Gamecock defense to lock down late, and again, the kicker just doinked one from. I mean, he was right there too. It was like almost PAT. It was right there,
Point blank range.
Yeah, and that was the difference, man. In overtime, and South Carolina won that game, and it ended up being a fantastic postgame show.
Probably one of the most fun post-game shows you've ever had, if not the most.
And like you said, the storylines that were there, because, look, Dylan had already become a folk hero, and he would go on in 2014 to have a record-setting offensive season for this program. People liked it, but Connor, there was just something, that gamer or whatever in Connor.
He had it.
And Steve knew that Connor had it, but seriously, I don't really know for sure, and Connor may never truly tell anybody that just how hurt he was that week and how much pain he may have been in, because Connor Shaw took a beating, and he seemed to be the guy. Thank you, sir. Can I have another?
Right.
I mean, he was just such a competitor,
absorbing the punches.
Just such a competitor. And he had to come in and make the difference. And it's not, again, I don't think there was a lack of belief in Dylan. I just think Steve realized we got to do something. Like, Connor, can you give me anything? Yeah, and of course, Connor could have had both his arms broken. Yeah, coach, I got my legs. Let's go.
He's the knight in Holy Grail.
Yeah, it's just a flesh wound. Yeah. Only in a Georgia accent.
Right.
But
different twang.
But no, that was a hell of a game, man. That was a hell of a game, and one of the more fun ones to just see it unfold. It hurts because not that game, but it just again, Carolina lost a second conference game that year
to a bad Tennessee team.
Yeah, later in the season, and that was what derailed it, if you will. But like I said, too, that team finished number 4 in the country. Beat Clemson again. Won the bowl game. Beat a good Wisconsin team in the bowl game. Mike Davis had a hell of a year. And what I remember too, speaking of Connor and Bruce, I don't do tons of press conferences. Did them earlier in my career, but later in my career I didn't. But I remember both press conferences post game, Elijah, at the Citrus Bowls. The one against Nebraska where Bo Pelini said, well, the better team didn't win today.
Classic.
And again, even the Nebraska guys looked around going like, is he serious? Did he just say that? It's like,
he didn't really mean that,
yeah,
right?
It's like, Coach, your team didn't score a point in the last 50. That's 5-0 minutes of the game. But okay, you do you, Bo. But what I remember about the Wisconsin postgame is Coach Spurrier had Bruce and Connor up on the podium with him. Now, of course, they were the heroes of the Missouri game, but they had good games against Wisconsin as well. And it was in that press conference where Steve told Connor that he'd been invited to the NFL Combine. Connor did not know that, and Steve kept it from him and told him in the postgame. And it was also where Steve delivered one of his classic Steve Spurrier lines. And Bruce was also a very good Southeastern Conference basketball player. But Steve said to Bruce in so many words, "You don't want to play basketball in Europe, do you?" Because he wanted Bruce to go on to the NFL, and Bruce kind of like, "Nah, coach." And of course, Bruce went on to play in the NFL for 6 or 7 years or whatever. I forget exactly how many, but Bruce had a good run in the NFL. But that 2013 team, man, that was a good team, and that was a fun game. That was a fun comeback win at Missouri, and again, beat Clemson again. And remember, all 5 wins against Clemson in that streak were double-digit wins.
It's impressive.
Yeah, so you didn't just beat them.
Against good Clemson teams,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Well, Clemson,
Really
I believe, I know Clemson was for sure favored in 2 of those 5, maybe 3. But I know for sure Clemson was the favorite in 2 of those. And, yeah, Clemson was good. They were absolutely good, man. No question. No question. So, good times. Good times. And maybe Shane and crew can start bringing some of those kind of things back. And it was fun to beat Missouri for Carolina fans last year.
Very.
Yeah. They don't like Eli or his shoes.
No, absolutely. I don't like Eli's shoes either.
John wants to weigh in on that Missouri game from back in the day. Hey, John.
Hey, Jay. Wanted to throw a couple of things at you, jog the memory a little bit. First, by the way, Eli Drinkwitz, I don't know if you remember when he was at NC State, all of our guys were like, "Hey, bring him down to be our offensive coordinator." And then all of a sudden, he ends up over there. So anytime we can beat him, that's great. But the game you're talking about, 2 things about that game that I remember extremely well. Are number one, and back then at the time, I actually was part owner of the Big Spur with J.C. Sherbert and those guys.
Okay.
And I'll never forget them talking about Connor. Not only did he have a sprained knee, but he was like sick, like really sick.
Yeah.
Like I had a fever and everything. And then when the old ball coach threw him in, 2 things people don't remember, a lot of people don't remember, is that pass to Ellington, that was like 4th and 21 or something.
Right.
It was like insane. And I'll just never forget sitting there watching that, and it's like, did he get it? But it was amazing. Then, of course, Andrew Baggett, and I'd have to do a little research on this, but Andrew Baggett's the guy that yanked the kick, and he was like all-world that year.
Yeah.
I don't think he had missed a field goal at home at all, and he shanks it. But, man, listen, we obviously the Clemson moments, and there's a bunch of them, but there's none better than that for Connor Shaw. That's like a story that you can make a movie on.
It really, yeah. I don't disagree because again, he was all bang, and again, I don't know how hurt he really was. You're right. I mean, there were a lot of things that week, and like I said, I think he had a back issue too.
Andrew Baggett missed 2 kicks in that game.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was a guy who in the year was 16 for 20 on the year. Only missed 4 kicks all year. Half of the missed kicks he had in the wrong year. Just kidding. Look at the wrong year. But yeah, almost half same deal. Almost half the kicks he missed in that year came in that game.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think if you ask Whittle, because Whittle was covering that for us back then, I know for a fact, and I do remember something about his back. I know he had a sprained knee, but I also remember they said, he's got like 101 temperature, and I'm like, man, there's no way this guy's going to play. Right. And he went in, and let me tell you something, it's just, all I can say is if Lenore Sellers ever gets the thought process that Connor Shaw has, he'd be the greatest quarterback ever.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, guys.
Well,
but anyway,
thank you, John. Appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
Good stuff. Yeah, and that's what we should do. Just ask Whittle. Whittle knows what's up.
We got his number. Yeah.
I have said, and I don't mean to take this too far or anybody to like lament anything, but to John's point there about football players being able to have the mindset of Connor Shaw. If I have any kind of lamentation about, and there's a few about Gamecock football through the years, but I've always said about Steven Garcia, who was an excellent quarterback, but if Steven Garcia could have had even like 80% of the preparation and drive and desire of Connor Shaw, he wins the Heisman Trophy. Because Steven had all the tools. Connor had plenty of tools. One of the things I loved about Connor is hearing opposing players in post games when the Gamecocks would win and Connor would do things with his legs. And they would say some refrain almost weekly, Elijah, of, we didn't know he was that fast because he didn't look that fast on film. And we didn't know he was that fast until he was running past us or running into us. Or, we didn't know he was that tough until he ran into, those kind of things about Connor.
Sneaky athleticism.
And I don't say what I just said to knock Steven Garcia. But, at that point in time when Steve had both of them on campus, and Connor's just built differently mentally. And that's fine. Again, Steven had his moments. He certainly did. But I think if you're a Gamecock football fan, you know what I'm talking about when I say that kind of thing. Connor, as the son of a coach, I think he connected in a different way with GA Mangus and with Coach Spurrier than and of course GA was kind of brought in to bridge the gap between Garcia and Coach, because I think there were times when Coach was ready to throw things.
Well documented.
Well, because Steven was just, he wanted to show up and play football. And I get it, I get it. But Steve Spurrier didn't get it. Because Steve's, as brash as Steve may have been in his career, and again, he was a Heisman Trophy winner. He knew you had to prepare. You can't just show up. And he coached a Heisman winner, too. Don't forget that. He coached Danny Werfel to win the Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
But I've said, if you could have given Steven just 80% of what Connor had in terms of just drive, determination. I don't even care about the ability part, because Steven had the ability. And Steven could get away from defenders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was as fast as Connor Shaw. But he could extend the pocket, and he could roll, and he didn't mind putting his head down. He would. But if he could have done those other things that begin to mount up, I think you got somebody who's really special.
That's why I love Connor Shaw, even as somebody who wasn't living here at the time of Connor Shaw playing, but watched him from afar. I admired how tough that guy was and all the stuff that he did to help his team win games. It's incredibly admirable. And it's the absolute worst twist of fate that he had to play for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I hate that for him.
Yeah.
There is nobody that was least deserving of the fate of having to play for the Cleveland Browns than Connor Shaw. Yeah. He deserved better.
It's fair. That's fair. And I wonder, too, look, a lot of those dudes are tough. I know Connor a little bit, and he and I talk from time to time, but I know Ryan Brewer well. And there's so much of Brew and that kind of gamer in who Connor was, too. And like I said, I don't know. I love what Ryan says in so many words of there's a difference in playing hurt and being injured.
Mm-hmm.
There's hurt and there's injured. Everybody's hurt because it's football. But I would like to know, how many times was Connor Shaw injured and still out there? Because I know there were times when Ryan Brewer was injured and was still out there.
Played anyway.
Yeah. And sometimes you're just too injured to play.
Right.
What is that? And what does that look like?
For those guys,
right.
Yes. What does too injured to play look like? Because it might be gruesome. And I don't think I want to see what that would look like.
Daddy, why is that man's arm hanging the way to? He's just separated his shoulder. He's fine.
He's good. Give him a breather.
Just walking back around the hall and
pop it back in.
Pop it back in there.
Like nothing ever happened.
He'll be fine. Why does his foot look like that? Nah, it's just swollen. Just get him a bigger shoe. He's fine.
We got plenty of cleats in the back. We'll give him another shoe.
We'll come back on the other side, continue looking at our scheduling format here. Again, all Power 4 games. Is it feasible? Is it fair? Elijah Campbell has found a way. We'll talk about what the Gamecock schedule could look like, some around the SEC, and I'll revisit a little bit from about 10 years ago from Jim Delaney of the Big Ten on why we still aren't where we want to be. This is the Postgame Show. We reminisce about all the games we watched back in the day. You can also ask yourself, man, I remember the TV I was watching it on and how much better that TV could have been. Well, if you're thinking that these days, 803-948-8327, that's the number for integrated media. Upgrade that system so that when those kind of moments happen this football season, you are watching them and listening to them on the most state-of-the-art system you can possibly have in your home. Integrated Media is ready to do that. With fantastic Dolby Atmos sound throughout your house, they can install those speakers in the wall, in the ceiling, or you can have Sonos speakers you can pick up and move around, still get the same great sound. Amazing televisions from Sony and Samsung. Maybe an outdoor system that looks and sounds like the indoors. Wi-Fi that works everywhere for better streaming and gaming. All those things and more. Get ahead of the football rush. 803-948-8327. That's my good friends at Integrated Media. Welcome back in. I'm still having trouble with my microphone. It wants to swing left.
I don't know who is kicking your tail worse this summer, the microphone or the internet.
It's only been, well, I guess it's the internet. Everybody had a bad day yesterday, you told me.
Yeah, you guys made history. You made Jay versus the internet history yesterday, both going 0-3.
Well, at least I didn't lose any ground.
You did not. No, you lost 0 ground yesterday.
So there's
Misery certainly loved company.
There's that. Speaking of the internet, poll question today as we continue discussing future college football scheduling, would you be in favor of a format where each Power 4 school plays 9 conference games, with the other 3 being a game against a school from each of the remaining leagues? A, sure. B, nope. C, depends on the selection. Right now, 59.6% of you say sure. 25%, though, say no. And 15.4% say it depends on the selection. In other words, who is it that I would be playing in those non-conference games? Now, obviously, for Carolina, you'd be playing Clemson plus 2 others. I'm not – listen, people have their opinions and their thoughts and feelings. Are the 25%ers people that are just concerned, again, about having games that you might lose, or do they just want to keep – is this some of those FCS folk that we spoke with
that are trying to preserve
just don't want those games to go away? I don't – I'm not sure who the nope is on the 20, but 25%.
I'd like to know what the hang-up is. That would be my question.
Yeah. So if you want to, provide any further reasoning, again, I'm not here to like holler at you or rag on you or anything like that. I don't mean it that way. I'm just curious. What wouldn't you be in favor of? What concerns you? Because I think there are some legit concerns, and I get it. And listen, to be serious, this is the hang-up right now, I think, for the Southeastern Conference especially. I don't think the ACC is doing a whole lot of talking about going to a 9th conference game. I haven't heard it anyway. But I think the hang-up for the Southeastern Conference is, will that extra loss that half the league gets be a detriment, in the bigger picture? And I think it's a fair question. And I think that's something that Greg Sankey is looking for. I think it's something that the Big Ten is looking for. The Big Ten right now is, believe it or not, the bigger proponent of automatic qualification spots in the college football playoff. Now, I say that they're the bigger public
proponent.
Are we seeing Greg and Tony with a little good cop, bad cop?
I think so.
Maybe
and
so.
Ryan Day helping his commissioner out by saying, we deserve 4 automatic bids. The same way I should be like, I deserve a $50,000 a year raise.
Yeah. I deserve 5 Big Macs every day for lunch without gaining any weight.
Absolutely. So I should get it. That's how that works. So
this is from Scott Dockerman of The Athletic. I'm going to read this real quick, and then I'll get into a phone call. Chad, sit tight. Coming to you in a second. In terms of the Big Ten wanting the AQs after 9 conference games, Scott, who covers the Big Ten primarily, writes the following. The Big Ten has historical grounds to distrust a system that was supposed to reward strength of schedule and other concrete metrics, and instead leaned into subjectivity to make prior selections. In July of 2015, former Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney brought out slides and unveiled his 1910 scheduling plan designed to make his conference champion competitive for the 4-team college football playoff. Our conference opponent and no contests against football championship subdivision competition. Delaney believed his strategy would position the Big Ten well for its best team to earn a playoff spot and for non-champions to make New Year's 6 bowl games. Quote, said Delaney at the time, I think that's responsive to what the committee is looking for. We think it's what our fans want. We think it's what our players want. And we think it's what the College Football Playoff Committee wants. He was right about 2 of those things. It's what the fans want.
Yep.
And it's what the players want. Because, Elijah, you pointed it out last week. Again, not trying to be a smartass. You never heard an SEC football player say, man, I came here to play an FCS team.
Right.
No, you came to play Georgia and Alabama and Florida and Tennessee and so on and so forth. But clearly Delaney found out that that was not what the committee was looking for. The committee was still basically just saying, how many games did you win? Or more importantly, perhaps, how many games did you lose? And that's kind of where we still are. And that's one of my hangups, as you well know, Mr. Campbell. I believe that the college football public, be they committee members, fans, coaches, players, whomever, across the board, got to let go of this notion that if you have more than a loss, you don't deserve to be the college football national champion. Only 1 year, right? 07?
And this year, yeah.
And this year. But we have a 12-team playoff.
It allowed
Ohio State doesn't get into a 14 playoff.
It allowed Ohio State to be in there, get in there, and win. This year, a 12-team playoff proved the necessity of expanding to 12.
Yeah. So that was 10 years ago. That was Delaney's plan 10 years ago. Hey, let's beef it up, and let's take our chances with just being better at the product and the business. And basically, he got snubbed.
Isn't it kind of ironic, too, that in the two playoff expansions, it was Ohio State whose performance it was Ohio State whose performance in them was the proof of necessity, right? The proof that you needed a 14 playoff was them beating number 1 Alabama, whereas they wouldn't have had a shot to play Alabama if you didn't have a 14 playoff.
Right.
And then this year, being a 2-loss team that wouldn't have been in a 14 playoff, winning the 12-team playoff, which means we're going to go a decade without them winning again until we ultimately expand.
Right.
Or if they do expand to 16,
they'll win next year
with 3 losses.
Somebody will win. Yes, somebody will win. Somebody else will win this year.
If the College Football Playoff Committee needs a team to prove the necessity of expansion, they know to send a phone call to Columbus, Ohio.
Let's get to Chad real quick on the phone lines. Hey, Chad, how are you?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Good. So here's my idea. If they take the 4 Power 4 schools or the 4 Power 4 conferences, each of them gets 16 teams in their conference, break them up north, south, east, west, 4 teams per division. They play their 3 in-division opponents plus their 1 rivalry game. There's 4. And then they play 1 division from each of the other 3 conferences and rotate it. So, like, they're playing the West. So it'd be the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 West this year. Your winner of each division goes on to play in the college football playoffs, and there's your 16-team playoff.
Yeah, I can see that. Thanks for the call. I can see that as a long term, but I think unfortunately that requires the dissolution, if you will, of the current conferences as we know them. And
It'd have to be a total restructure.
Yeah, then you're talking that super league. And that may end up being a thing in the next generation. I don't think that happens in the shorter term. I don't have a problem with that long term. I don't. Now, I may not be on this planet anymore by then. I don't know. I hope I am. I don't know. Or I actually hope that I might be able to be on this planet and see the current conference structure just correct itself enough to where we can still just all play each other. Again, that's what that's what I'm for. Whatever it looks like, that's what I'm here for. Again, I got no disrespect towards the MAC or the Sun Belt or the WAC or the
we're
FCS.
Still giving them a chance to play in the playoff but then they'll just be playing against each other in the similar vein of having every Power 4 conference play each other to get a large sample size as to how good and deep these leagues are. You'd get a similar one with the G6 when it comes time to picking which of those champions gets to represent the G6 in the playoff.
Right.
Really, what you're just doing here with the ideas that we've kind of thrown out is if you're going to rely on a committee, give them as much information in terms of what actually happened on the field instead of maybe giving them numbers they don't understand.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you they don't understand how strength of schedule is comprised. They don't understand FPI. They don't understand SP+. To them, they are numbers. Low number mean good. Yes, true, but do you understand how we get to low number to be good?
We'll have more what we think are very plausible schedules for SEC teams and revisit Carolina's potential schedule when we come back.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadway, starting with a pretty significant accident on Augusta Road near I-20. An overturned vehicle at the Lexington School District 1 Administration Building is causing a significant backup. Avoid that if possible. We also have accidents on Dutch Fork Road, Highway 76 near Three Dog Road, Hard Scrabble Road at Summit Parkway, I-26 eastbound at Piney Grove Road near Exit 104, and Windsor Lake Boulevard near Hunt Club Road. Also a disabled vehicle causing traffic backup on Old Cherokee Road near Pilgrim Church Road.
Talking college football scheduling and what it could look like in the future. Obviously, anything we talk about today wouldn't be implemented for the coming season, maybe not even for 26, but soon enough, we hope. And again, a lot of this hinges on the Southeastern Conference's collective decision to go to 9 conference games. How much of it is about ESPN paying them? I think we kind of know now that Disney will come off with more cash if the SEC gives them more quality games. I think it's now about protecting the ability to get into the playoff and what that looks like. Is it going to be a 5+11? In other words, 5 highest-ranked conference champions get an automatic qualification into the tournament, and then 11 will be chosen by a committee? Will there be the 4+4+2+2+1+3 model, which is fun to do, and at least I can do that math. Whew.
Less math, the better.
A lot of numbers. I think, too, Elijah, before I toss it to you to give some potential schedules and again, how we kind of came up with what we did today. Elijah and I had a great day. It's too bad we don't have like the 40-minute discussion we had this morning as part of today's show.
And what I would have loved to have done is have us be recorded putting this together.
Yeah.
Putting the whole schedules together and discussing our thought
Maybe we ought to do
process
that.
and talking through which games to pick for which teams, because there's a couple decisions I made on here for certain teams where I was like, there's 2 or 3 teams in that tier I could give you, but I was like, oh, this matchup is sexier, or this would be funnier.
Or you could have had me where I had a moment. I called Elijah. I was like, hey, I had Carolina play in Iowa, but they have to play Iowa State. Elijah goes, well, I thought we were doing it like one per conference. I was like, yeah. He's like, well, Iowa State's in the Big 12. I was like, oh, geez. When I was putting it together, I was just thinking like rivals.
Jay not only is making a schedule, he's rearranging conferences.
Like Iowa State, congratulations, you're in the ACC.
Come on down.
So, yeah, whoever wants to sponsor the pre-show meeting, by all means, call our buddy Josh Ellman, and he'll take care of you. This is, to me, I think, as much, again, about making sure that you're going to get into the playoff if you lose a couple of more games. And I know it's not apples to apples, but you and I also discussed this morning, and I've mentioned it on the show. I know it's college, not the NFL, but everybody's perfectly fine with the 9-7 New York Giants winning a Super Bowl over the New England Patriots, who I think lost. That wasn't the undefeated team.
That was the undefeated.
Okay, that was the undefeated team.
Because they beat the Patriots twice, and I think that second team might have been like 10-6.
Yeah, they weren't much better.
They weren't much better.
Yeah. But nobody has a problem with that because there's a system to get you in. And, again, why would people are going to have a problem? Nobody has a problem with Connecticut men's basketball, 15 years ago? What year was that?
That would have been 2014.
Okay, so 11 years ago.
Championship as a 7 seed.
Seven seed.
I hated it personally.
No,
but
I get
the
it.
concept I like.
But,
I just don't care about
but there's a format that allows them to be in. And they went on and won. Again, 4-seed baseball, Fresno State, which is the equivalent of a 13 or lower seed. Let's say Fresno State, for basketball purposes, would have been a 13 seed. And they won the College World Series.
It was magical.
Because there's a way for them to get in and play well. I don't have a problem if you have a third or fourth loss, and a few teams do. But Ohio State was fantastic last year. They lost a heartbreaker at Oregon, and they know what, they didn't show up against Michigan. And that is their fault. And in the old days, it does keep you out. But they were still good enough to win the national championship, and they did. In the meantime, we're coming up with all Power 4 schedules and, again, formatting it with some balance. And let's do Carolinas again real quick.
Yes.
What it could look like, in any given year here, based on last year and what we're using standings and trying to provide some balance.
And with preserving these rivalries too, Clemson will be South Carolina's ACC game every year.
Right.
Every single year, no exceptions until one of them quits playing football. So you got Clemson, and because Clemson finished in that top tier of the ACC, you then have to get a mid-tier from the Big 10 or Big 12, and then a low-tier Big 10 or Big 12 team. So I decided the mid-tier.
And these would rotate through the years.
And these will rotate through the years, and it rotates by team. I rotated them by team, too, so not everybody's, obviously, to make the numbers match up, you have to do that. So I assigned the Big 12, flipped a coin, really, and the Big 12 was going to be the mid-tier team they played, and that was going to be Texas Tech. And then the low-tier team from the Big 10, I assigned UCLA. So we have...
Which is crazy to think that's a low-tier team, but it is.
Especially in the Big 10.
Based on the standings.
Based on the standings, yes. So the South Carolina non-conference schedule in this season would be Clemson, UCLA, Texas Tech. That'd be the slate.
Yeah, that's
plus
a good,
9 SEC.
And look, and again, it's based on last year's standings, but there's a lot of reasons, not just Nico, there's a lot of reasons to believe UCLA will be a little bit better. You mentioned Florida and Florida State. Okay, yeah, last year FSU crapped the bed. That's not typical FSU, and it won't be typical FSU. Last year, Purdue, I forget where you have Purdue on there, but for whoever they might play. But
Purdue might not have anybody.
Well, Purdue went over, but they're not. They're not. I like Barry Odom, and he'll get it. And Purdue is not typically. They're not a world beater, but they're not an over.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
and sometimes things change from one year
That's
to the
college
next.
sports too.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially now.
I mean, we can look at South Carolina's and be like, okay, well, outside of Clemson, those are like 2 winnable games. But look, if Nico improves UCLA and they end up being really good, then that game looks better when you win.
Yeah.
And same thing for Texas Tech. Texas Tech, I think, could be a top 3 team in the Big 12
How
this
cool
year.
with that? And see, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, too, because you and I have discussed in the past, and we've had it with the listeners. Well, Jay, so what do you say? You want Carolina to play, Ohio State? And like, no.
No.
Not, I mean, if you do one year, cool.
I got Georgia playing Houston in this.
Yeah.
Because you have to balance it out.
Yeah, but again, Carolina, Texas Tech, or as I said, Carolina, maybe Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa, Wisconsin.
And it still leaves the door open for fun upsets to happen. What if Houston went to Georgia and pulled off an upset?
Yeah.
Right?
Give me who you got for Alabama.
Okay, so Alabama, part of the rotation, their top tier conference was going to be the Big 12. So I gave them Big 12 champion Arizona State.
All right.
The mid-tier conference was the Big 10, so I gave Alabama Iowa.
Ooh. Let's see.
That would be a fun game.
That's good. That's a good
game.
college football game, man.
And then their low-tier ACC team is Wake Forest.
Okay.
So they can play Wake Forest, still kill them. But again, this is about balance. This is not about assigning one team a murderer's row.
Yeah.
It's about giving you a sample size as to what the bottom of one league does against the top of one, what the mid-tier teams in one league does against mid-tier teams from another league, as well as seeing how the top teams play each other.
Well, and let's face it, if we were doing things like this as we talk about a thought exercise, none of us had Indiana doing what Indiana did last year.
Nope.
There is not. Well, None.
That would have been a bad draw for somebody thinking they'd get a good draw.
Yeah, even Kurt Signetti didn't think he was going to go to the first ever 12-school college football playoff.
Right. Imagine he
was hoping for, an eight-win season, and hey, let's get Indiana to a bowl game.
Imagine Texas A&M in this scenario going into last year, gets a low-tier Big Ten draw, and they're like, okay, Indiana, awesome.
Right.
Turns out Indiana kicks tail. And if they would have had to go to Bloomington and gotten there and gotten it beat,
right,
then it'd be like, oh, well, we actually end up getting a hard draw.
Right.
That's the fun of this thing too.
Yeah,
is that you don't absolutely know year in year out. You have a clue, but you don't know year.
All right, give me. Let's do one more before we hit a break. Let's do. Give me Texas.
All right, Texas. Their top tier game.
Yep.
Be Ohio State in the Big Ten.
Okay.
They play this year
anyway. They're going to play anyway, so I like
that decision was easy for me to give in terms of signing.
Yeah.
Their conference for the mid-tier is the Big 12, which will be Kansas State.
All right, a fun rematch of an old conference foe. Yeah,
familiar faces.
I like that.
And then the low-tier ACC team they'd play is Virginia.
Okay. That's a good, but and again, they have their 9 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
And we built in some things too. that we talked about, if we did this nationally, Oregon and Oregon State would still play, even though Oregon State's not a power conference
But
team.
because there are 18 teams in the Big Ten, you can just
you
fill.
can find
Yes,
right.
like Purdue did not get assigned.
Yeah,
team
because you need the slots. So
Yes.
that would, and again, so the Apple Cup and the Civil War would still be played up in the Pacific Northwest. This would bring Bedlam back, as you discussed, which I think is important. And again, we didn't do necessarily all Big Ten stuff here, but
and can infiltrate Notre Dame in there too.
yeah, this could solidify Notre Dame, Southern California. Iowa and Iowa State are not in the same conference. They would play.
Like, for instance, like I have LSU playing Oregon. But if this is a year that Oregon misses out on the SEC because they're preserving their rivalry, you shoehorn Notre Dame in there instead.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue some of this, and we'll have Jay or Nay on the other side. It's the postgame show. Waking up feeling a little stiff, time to call the folks and go see them. The Joint Chiropractic Centers, 4 very convenient locations all across the Midlands. Back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, joint pain. Get back in the game at the Joint. You never have to worry about appointments or insurance. And they're FSA and HSA approved, which matters to a lot of you. Get in and out quickly. Don't miss your lunch hour. Don't miss any work time. They're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 7, Saturdays 10 until 4. We talk a lot about football scheduling around here. Again, later on this fall, you may be traveling to a game out of town, or you're going on vacation this summer, or going on a business trip, whatever. There are Joint Chiropractic Centers all across the country. So once you're in the system, you can go see a chiropractor in another city, and they'll know exactly what's up based on what you've done here in Columbia. Harbison Boulevard, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch, Sunset Boulevard. The Joint is convenient, affordable, helps you maintain a healthy body and prevent reoccurring issues. You don't have to feel bad to feel better at the Joint. All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes of our second hour. Coming up top of the hour, headlines of the day. We'll get into a few other thoughts around Gamecock football for you around 5:15, drive around the SEC, and a whole lot more. And we'll continue to talk about some of the other SEC. Elijah came up with a schedule for every SEC team.
For everybody.
Yeah.
I assigned everybody 3 non-conference games from the other 3 power conferences.
From the Power Four. That's what we're here today to discuss. Like it's really, I think what'd you say on Twitter? Because the way you worded that.
But it's so crazy, it just might work.
This can work with, and quite honestly, I think with relative ease, man. It's just a matter, as Greg Sankey said on Dan Patrick the other day, you need to facilitate it. You just, if you want to do this, major college football, if you want to do this, you can do this really easily, actually.
Yeah, it's so doable.
Yeah.
And I made it to where some of the games are not too far, it's not too much travel. Now, UCLA, South Carolina, yeah, we're just going to have to bite the bullet on that one.
Okay.
But I have Kentucky playing West Virginia.
I think Shane would love
to go to Los
take
Angeles.
his team to Los Angeles and go recruit for a week.
Yeah, have them play
in
the
one
Rose
of the
Bowl
5 best recruiting hotbeds in the country.
Yeah.
He would love that.
And then you have a fun game like Kentucky, West Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm sure the fan bases would
We
love
looked that up. They haven't played since 1983, y'all. Kentucky and West Virginia hadn't played college football since 1983. That's silly.
Nasty word.
That's silly. All right, it's game show music time. That's all I care about.
Yes, it is. Jay or nay? Which one do we want to start with here? Oh, that's a good one. Jay or nay? Mike McDonald went on a Seattle radio station and adamantly supported Sam Darnold as the starter no matter what. But maybe he should be open to more competition with Milroe and Locke.
Jay, I mean, you need to be open to competition. I mean, I look, Darnold had a hell of a year, and I am one who, look, I talk a lot about an NFL developmental league. I talk about the fact that way too many what I think could be good quarterbacks are given up on in the NFL because fans and an owner or, even a coach sometimes, well, he just doesn't have it. Well, I mean, okay, why? Because you don't have an offensive line? Because you don't have a receiver? Or 2.
Not built to support him?
Yeah, I mean, that happens way too often. Just way too often. And where was Sam Darnold? The Jets and the Panthers?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I think San Francisco was a backup, where he didn't even play.
What if Aaron Rodgers had started with the Jets and then with the Panthers?
I don't think he is where he is today.
Right? I mean, so, yeah, be open to competition, but I like Sam Darnold. Jay
or nay? The Royals calling up Jack Caglione early and not getting an extra year before arbitration is the right call.
It is the right call. I love this. I love this for him. By the way, I saw that Jack Caglione is the first Kansas City Royal to be called up after having been drafted within 1 year's time to be called up to the big club since Bo Jackson in 1986.
Woo!
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty
heady
good
company
class to be in, right?
That's heady company. No, I think I absolutely. If you can play, you can play. That's what we're here for.
And last night, I know he went 0 for 5 in his debut last night, but he had the 3 hardest hit balls in that game.
Yeah, he was like 2 of them were like 100 miles an hour, right? Off the
One
bat.
went 112.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be good.
He'll be fine. I hope they let him pitch one day.
Same. They should.
I hope they let him pitch one day.
Position players pitch in the MLB all the time.
No, it's. I'm glad he's up. Just don't call your college head coach for any advice anytime soon.
Especially on how to treat people.
That's right. Hour 3 coming up.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you. They're causing some issues on the roadway, starting with a traffic light that is down on the road, Glenwood and Trenham right now. That's causing a significant backup, as well as an accident on Augusta Road near I-20, where an overturned vehicle at Lexington School District 1 Administration Building is causing a very, very significant backup. You also have accidents on Bickley Road at Broad River Road, Old Woodlands Road at Garner's Ferry, River Drive at Sunset, and Zimmelcrest Drive at Bush River Road.
It is 5 o'clock news time here on a Wednesday. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Final hour coming at you alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. We start with some Gamecock baseball transfer news. Couple of pieces of good news today. There's been the mixed of the good and the bad as kids are in, kids are out. Of course, a couple of days ago, we told you about Logan Sutter coming in, the slugger from Purdue. Now a big-time pitcher is coming into the Gamecocks. His name is no relation, Amp, A-M-P, Amp Phillips. He has been pitching at Upstate this past season. He's from Lancaster, started at Spartanburg Methodist. Last year, he redshirted. This year at Upstate, 12 starts, 7-2, a 3.64 ERA and 84 innings, struck out 81, walked 29, and held opponents to a 212 batting average. He's 6'1", 180 pounds, and moved into the rotation about a month or so into the season.
He's got a couple saves as well.
Yeah, throws hard, and we'll be given every opportunity to be a weekend rotation guy for the Gamecocks. Jake McCoy will be back. We already know that. Again, the only Gamecock starting pitcher to have made a start in each of Carolina's 14 weekend series. So he's back. Again, I'm not guaranteeing Amp Phillips is going to start for South Carolina in the rotation next year. We'll see. But a good pickup for one final year.
And the numbers are good. I mean, you reel off some of those. I calculated his walks, hits per innings pitched, and that is about 1.09.
That's right.
That's I know in the majors that's pretty excellent. In college, you have a different scale, but a 1.09 whip, even at the Big South level, is still very suitable. That's an acceptable level to be able to bring in. And if he's throwing mid-90s, which is what I've read that he can touch
I've seen that he can hit 94, 95.
Then that's SEC caliber stuff.
Sure.
So it's certainly somebody that can help you.
Well, and again, look, even if you can't, can you not walk guys? I mean, Carolina had so many
or hit batters
walks last year. My goodness.
I wouldn't want to face Carolina pitchers because I was afraid to get hit.
Yeah. Although they'll take them these days.
And I'm a weenie.
I see guys now in college, they don't even move, man. They just know that's part of it.
I'm ducking for my life.
And umpires aren't, you're supposed to at least make an effort to get out of the way. And baseball players are like, hey, I moved my shoulder.
I flinched.
Yeah.
I just flinched forward.
Right. So anyway, there you go. Amp Phillips, again, no relation, coming in.
That we know of.
That's right.
Until I see that 23andMe, I'm not buying it.
And speaking of right-handed pitchers, Parker Marlett will be back for his junior season. Jack Veltri reporting that earlier today. Parker was pretty good out of the pen. He had a 4.18. That's not great, obviously, but considering that the staff ERA was over 6 and that the staff ERA in conference games was nearly 9, a little bit over 4 is more acceptable, and you hope he can get better. In all seriousness, he struck out 30, walked 11 in 28 innings, but he will be back next season. And I wonder Elijah, and we'll find out more from Jack and from John Whittle and others, and we'll certainly effort, whether it's Coach Maneri or Coach Rooney at some point here, once things slow a little bit for them. There may be a few weeks. We'll get them back on the program, I hope. No, we will. But, how much of this is we'd like you to come back? How much of this is do you want to come back? And how much of this, for some, is you need to go somewhere else? And I'm sure the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Just to what degree and for whom?
Various degrees, yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure it was absolutely the definition of a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. But so there you go. A couple of pieces of news today, and this thing ain't slowing down anytime soon. So there will definitely be more additions and subtractions from the Gamecock baseball roster, but there's a couple again. Amp Phillips comes down from upstate. Parker Marlette will continue to be a Carolina Gamecock. Atlanta Braves lose last night to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they didn't look good doing it, y'all. 8-3. The final score. Spencer Strider didn't have it last night. Atlanta has now lost 9 of their last 12. They are now in 4th place, a half game behind Washington, who also lost last night. So they've not gained any ground. Braves and Diamondbacks go at it again tonight. Merrill Kelly will be the starting pitcher for Arizona. He's having a pretty good year, 5-2 with a 3.78. Chris Sale goes for the Braves. He's 3-3 with a 3.06. Just win the game.
That's all you're asking.
Just win the game. The Braves.
They need it, man. They need it.
And I mentioned to you earlier, I'm not sure. I did read one piece that the Braves could make a move for a team by offering Marcell Ozuna or Sean Murphy.
I mean, trading Sean Murphy would be wise if you think the production from Drake Baldwin's sustainable.
I think the Drake Baldwin case, being a rookie catcher and being asked to manage the staff of the Braves is probably a really big ask. And I think it's as much about that inside the organization as anything else. Kid can hit.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, a rookie in Atlanta's heat, behind the plate, that plate production will wane. It just will.
And rookies will eventually hit a wall once we get to the dog days.
I mean, I can't, some days I can't imagine. And look, the opposing catcher has to do it too. And Atlanta's not the only hot city. But, brother, I've been to enough games in my lifetime in whatever ballpark. I've been to all 3 ballparks in my life that Atlanta has called home. And I've been in July and August. And trust me, it don't matter which one I'm in.
Ain't feeling good.
It's hot. The last time I went, it was 96 degrees. They played the Brewers. That was 2 years ago because we didn't get to go last summer, and it was so hot. And people always tell me, "Oh, Columbia's so hot." I'm like, man, you been to Atlanta or Charlotte in July and August? Don't give me that crap.
Miserable.
It's hot. And when you're a catcher and you're a rookie catcher and you're having to catch the Cy Young winner and some other guys that are really good, it's a big ask. It's a big ask
because you got to build a lot of rapport with those guys.
Yeah. And
they lean on you a lot.
Yeah.
With scouting reports and things like that.
And the Braves may be willing to have a catcher not be as productive, but that's again. I don't know. I've just seen that's Alex Anthopoulos may be looking at. All right, well, you want Sean Murphy, huh? Okay, well, what do you got?
Or in terms of assets, just zigging while others are zagging.
Right.
Do you trade Drake Baldwin for somebody who helps you right now in another position?
I don't think they want to do that, man. I think they like him too much.
I don't think they want to do that.
And if the right offer came in terms of, because at that point you're making a trade the Braves aren't going to sell. I guess the point is the Braves are not going to be sellers at this point. Like they're not going to give up. I don't believe.
I don't think so either because the team's too good.
And that's why I say with Murphy, he's mildly expendable. If you could get a quality left-handed reliever or another starting pitcher.
Because what are teams that are sellers looking for? Assets.
Yeah.
Sean Murphy, at his age and at this point in his career, won't be viewed as an asset.
No. That's a help now. He could be a help now for a help now kind of trade.
Yeah.
And then with Ozuna, same thing.
Help now for
Ozuna, and I know that Ozuna has a checkered personal history and people can view those things. I'm not a big fan of the things that were in the police report about him. I freely admit that. But the fact is, he's under contract, and his union is the strongest union in all of professional sport, and he still plays, and he's been productive. So you just have to separate those things. But the fact is, he's going to keep playing because you're going to pay him one way or another. Now, does another team want to take some of that PR on? I don't know. He's this year he's got a little hip flexor, so that kind of hinders a little bit of what he's doing too, and I think has helped. I say helped. It's been part of why Atlanta is not as good offensively because he's not as good as he can be. But he is in the final year of his contract, and this would be a good time to move him. But again, you would do it for help. And I doubt you do it like for like either. So, again, I think if the Braves are going to get help, Murphy and Ozuna are already pretty solid bats. So you're getting pitching help if you're getting rid of that. Again, are you getting another starter now that A.J. Smith-Shawver is down? Probably so. I think they'd love to see Bryce Elder regain some of what he had when he made the All-Star game a couple years ago, but he hadn't brought it back since, man.
Yeah, it's been rough.
It has.
It's been really rough for him.
He had it, and then it just went away.
But maybe somebody buys in on the potential he had.
Maybe.
There are a lot of dumb teams in professional sports. Maybe somebody
said, we'll fix him or we'll do it, and I figure if the Braves pitching system can't fix him, I don't know who's can.
Right.
And seriously, the Braves are fantastic at developing pitchers.
Well, that's why they've been so good all these years.
They're just so good at developing pitchers. So, I don't know. We'll see. But Braves and Diamondbacks tonight at 7:15. Speaking of bad baseball teams, at least the Braves aren't the Rockies, right? Well, break up the Colorado Rockies. Not only did they win again last night, but that is their first sweep of the year, and they did it on the road.
They've got 5 road wins.
Against their fellow expansion minor league team.
5 road wins
Miami
this year.
Marlins.
And 3 of them just came in Miami. Don't let the Rocks get hot, Jay Phillips. Look out, Dodgers. Look out, Giants. Look out, Padres.
Here come
Look
the
out,
Rockies.
Diamondbacks.
6-28 on the road, but a 3-2 win last night, their first sweep of the season. Good for them, man. Good for them. Seriously, good for them.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I don't want to see somebody break any records for futility.
It is kind of funny when someone does.
Well, it is, but it's also painful. But you know what? At the same time, in pro sports especially, they're getting paid.
Oh, yeah.
And they all make the league minimum. And the league minimum is real good.
Pretty good. Pretty nice. Yeah. I'll take it. I'll take the league minimum.
Very, very nice.
I'll go 0 for 4 strikeouts for the Rockies.
Sure.
That pay scale.
And finally, Rory McIlroy, speaking to reporters today ahead of the Canadian Open, said that it was a weird week a couple of weeks ago when he didn't speak to reporters up in Charlotte at the PGA Championship. He basically said, quote, and again, kids, cover your ears. I was a little pissed off because I knew that Scotty's driver had failed on Monday, but my name was the one that was leaked. This after testing had several players have their drivers removed, and they had to replace them with new drivers. He said it was supposed to stay confidential. 2 members of the media were the ones that leaked it. I didn't want to get up there and say something I regretted because I'm trying to protect Scotty. I don't want to mention his name. I'm trying to protect TaylorMade. I'm trying to protect the USGA, the PGA of America, and myself. I don't blame him. And it is unfortunate that media members got hold of the random players that were both selected for equipment testing and then had a piece of equipment removed. Scotty had to play with a new driver, too.
But that also got reported.
Yeah.
Like that also.
Well, ultimately.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
But that's kind of the job of those reporters,
not ahead of time. And I think, and that's why I think Rory, I get it. And then Rory last week, I think, was still in a bit of a funk. And, he apparently didn't call Jack Nicklaus ahead of time to tell him he wasn't going to play the Memorial. And that had some people, but I think Jack played it pretty cool. He's like, "Hey, I did that sometimes too."
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, Jack knows what being a very high level player is, and that sometimes you just gotta, catch your breath. So Jack was pretty gracious about it, and I'm sure Rory at this point has called Mr. Nicklaus and said, "We're good, man. I love you." Because everybody loves Jack.
Oh yeah. And then Jack probably gave him a go Buckeyes and then hung up the phone.
That's right. Jack said, I dotted the I once. I wonder if Jack has dotted the I more than once.
I would be curious to see that list.
Do they let you do it more than once?
Why not?
I don't know.
If you haven't done it in a while, nothing wrong.
I mean, there's
with
only 6 or 7 times a year you can do it. 7 times a year you can do it. So I don't know if they spread that around. If you know what we mean, that you get a celebrity gets to dot the I in the word Ohio when the band marches before the game every week.
Kind of the same way that here we have a celebrity guest or a former Gamecock in the
do the chant and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why you wouldn't bring him back for the Michigan game.
Right.
To exercise the demons they have against.
Well, Jack Nicklaus is incredibly high on the list of Ohio State alums.
Yes.
And he was the NCAA champion.
So he's even hung a banner.
Yeah. All right, that's our headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. A little more on the Gamecocks. Can we revisit a little recruiting?
We can.
All right, let's revisit a little of our recruiting with Wes Mitchell, and we'll have more fun with our scheduling talk as well. It's the Postgame Show. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock here on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Threw out a poll question earlier today on the Twitters. As we continue discussing future college football scheduling, would you be in favor of a format where each Power 4 school plays 9 conference games, with the other 3 being a game against a school from each of the remaining leagues? Sure, nope, or depends on the selection. Right now, 58.6 say sure. And it's gone up a little bit since last time, Elijah, 27.6 now. So actually, 27.6 say no.
My vote for sure didn't do all that much damage.
And 13.8 say it depends on the selection. So again, more than a quarter of you say, nah, you don't want that.
I would like to ask the 13.8% that asked or said that it depends on who you play,
Right.
if UCLA and Texas Tech tickles your fancy.
That'd be great, man.
Be fun,
That'd be great.
especially for like
You
Texas
came
Tech.
up with what you did for the SEC ones, too. We'll revisit that during the drive around. But you got some good ones. And again, I say inadvertently, it isn't like you don't know college football. You know it quite well. But you weren't doing this as an exercise to give Disney and Fox better television. But you did.
I will say when I was comparing things like Vanderbilt, right? When
Right.
I filled Vanderbilt's out, I gave them BYU because it was their turn. It was it was the Big 12's turn to have a top tier team play Vanderbilt. So I had picked BYU because there was one of the few left. Rutgers in the Big 10, and don't think when I looked at the low tier for the ACC and I saw Stanford there that I wasn't going to pass up a Nerd Bowl by Vanderbilt and Stanford not playing.
Right.
So that absolutely had something to do with it.
It's good. We'll have more of what Elijah did for the SEC scheduling. Again, just the possibility of what it could look like based on standings.
Oh, I'm going to save.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Keep hold of it.
And
Absolutely.
give it to Greg Sankey at Media Days.
In the meantime, we had our good friend Wes Mitchell on the program a little bit earlier talking some Gamecock recruiting. Shane Beamer and the staff in the midst, as Shane said, of better than 3 straight weeks with no days off. Excuse me, as they have kids in on campus, they have camps and everything else. And again, Steve Wiltfong is the national recruiting coordinator for On3 Sports, which Gamecock Central is affiliated with. And we asked Wes about what Steve was saying first about a new quarterback commitment, Landon Duckworth.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy people who have followed recruiting will remember. I mean, this is a chance to go full circle. He was committed to South Carolina way back in the beginning of his process, and just I think realized he committed way too soon and was originally recruited by Dow Loggins. Now you've seen Mike Shula kind of take over this recruitment. And, Carolina offered some other quarterbacks for this 2026 class, but Duckworth kind of emerged as Shula's guy, like his top target. So it kind of became a thing where it almost was like they just went all in. Like, hey, we feel good about Cutter Woods coming up as a true freshman. You always have the portal. And it felt kind of like they were just like, it's almost Duckworth or bust at this point. Like, this is our guy we want. Let's put our energy, let's put our effort into recruiting and landing this kid. And so they kind of, I don't want to say they fell off, but they were maybe a little bit behind some other schools after he decommitted and he took a bunch of visits. But they got him back on campus a couple of months ago, and that was when the momentum really kicked back in again. So they've got a little bit of that coming in. He's on campus this weekend. That's one of about 4 visits I think he has on the books. That'll be his second. 2 more coming up. I wouldn't say South Carolina is quite at the finish line yet. I think Ole Miss is still lurking. Sometimes I think fans read the predictions and they're like, oh, that means it's done deal. It's happening. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I do think South Carolina probably feels pretty good about where they are. Probably as good as they have in a long time about where they are with Duckworth. And like I said, man, like this is the guy they've wanted. He's probably the closest you're going to see in this class to having a skill set that sort of fits what we've seen from a Lenore Sellers at South Carolina.
Wes, I'm a big fan of the BOGO deal. And sometimes when I go grocery shopping, if I see that I can buy something and get another one free, even if I don't need the other one, I will get the other one because I know I'm getting it for free. But it looks like Shane Beamer and this coaching staff right now just might have a really good buy one, get one with a pair of defensive linemen in North Carolina with Andrew and Aiden Harris. What do you know about those two right there and how they both kind of project at the next level, especially considering they, like Duckworth, have been predicted to end up landing at South Carolina?
Yeah, and I would say, first of all, I think South Carolina is a little bit maybe closer to the finish line, so to speak, there with the two of them in terms of very realistically could have them in the boat and have them committed soon. They are both going to be on campus this weekend. And so Aiden is being recruited as a defensive tackle to South Carolina. Andrew being recruited actually more of like an off-the-ball linebacker, even though you'll see him listed as an edge a lot of places. South Carolina wants him kind of in that bigger linebacker role. And they're both just guys that have played together, obviously, their entire lives and have been outstanding for Weddington. Aiden's a little bit more of the higher recruited guy. You'll see him a lot of places have him top 10, top 5 among defensive tackles in the country. So he's a little bit, more of the guy that's been more highly recruited, but they're both outstanding sort of front seven players, difference makers, have offers from everybody. And, South Carolina has traditionally, it's been a little while, but they have had success with twins in the past. Of course, people remember the Lindsey brothers, the Brinkley brothers. Jay, I was trying to remember, like those are the two that pop in my mind. Not saying you're a little bit older than me, but you are a little bit older than me, Jay. So I was trying to remember if there were some other Gamecock twins over the years that have starred for South Carolina. Obviously, the Brinkleys are like the.
Yeah, I can't think of twins. I would have immediately gone to the Lindsays and Cap and Jap. Yeah, I can't recall. I'd have to go back. But if there are, Wes, it might be where one didn't do much and one did. But I'll. I can think of the Dozier twins in basketball. I got those. Terry and
there's been some brothers like. Shamir Jeffrey ended up playing for Carolina a few years after Alshon. Obviously didn't make the impact Alshon did, but there have been some brothers over the years. But, it's kind of rare and kind of cool. It'll be a very cool story, I feel like, if these two guys do end up at South Carolina together. And in particular, you look at the fact that Aiden plays defensive tackle. That's a spot that I think is very important for Carolina to land some difference-making high school guys in this class. So that would be a big get for them, a couple big gets, but a big get from a just needs standpoint as well.
Appreciate Wes being on the show, and that'll be the last time that Wes Mitchell is ever on this program.
Why? Did you say something?
He just called me old, man.
Is that?
He just straight up called me old.
Well, he said you're quite a bit older than him. And quite like 29 yards per play, it is a fact. We don't shy away from the facts on this program.
No, we don't shy away from them.
Relatively speaking.
Don't mean you got to just shove it right in my face like that. No, I love Wes Mitchell. He did great. Appreciate Wes's time. Excuse me.
Even though you did say at the very beginning of the interview that you've known him for a long time, even when he was very young.
That's right.
So
no, he and Chris,
I think you might have even gave the foreshadowing. You might have put the ball on the tee for him to hit.
Probably. So it's my fault.
Old.
It's my fault.
I'm just saying you didn't help yourself out.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's never coming on again, because I don't have to worry about it.
That's true. You don't have to worry about setting him up for him to dunk on you.
Yeah. But don't worry. Next time he's here in the studio, tomorrow?
He's going to be here tomorrow. Are you going to be here when he's here?
I'm not saying that I might sabotage one of these chairs, but I'm not saying it.
What happens tomorrow happens tomorrow.
Which one does Wes sit in? Where does Wes typically he sits?
I want to say he sits in that middle one right there.
Yeah, okay.
And then Chris is at the end. Oh.
Okay. Well, Chris is on vacation, so he won't be here to see it.
Or do you save it for when Chris is here?
Ooh, yeah, when he least expects it.
Yes, because we are, contrary to popular belief, there are people that listen.
Yeah, because I don't want Preston to get hurt.
Exactly. You got to think about the collateral damage.
Gunner, I don't mind, but Gunner sits where I sit.
Or maybe you just you sabotage one of the chairs and they just write on a notepad or something on it, say, special chair made for Wes.
For Wes.
Yeah.
That's right. Or put a pin in it, like the cartoons.
He sits on it and does ow.
Yeah.
That jumps up out of the seat. Yeah.
Nah, good stuff from Wes. Again, these kids will be in town this weekend. Weddington High School, by the way, is in Matthews, so right up the road. And I know at least for Aiden, Aiden Harris was being heavily recruited by Ohio State. I think the brothers would like to play together. And let's face it, I'm going to go out on a limb. Columbus is a lot farther than Columbia. So there's that. Drive around the SEC is next.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few big accidents to get to you that are causing some pretty significant traffic backups, including a traffic light down on Glenwood in Trenham. That one's been causing some issues for a little bit. We also have an accident of an overturned vehicle at the Lexington School District 1 Administration Building on Augusta Road near I-20, causing a major backup, as well as an accident that's got the left lane blocked on 26 westbound at Sunset Boulevard and exit 110. Avoid those if possible. We also have some accidents on Bickley Road at Broad River Road, Old Woodlands Road at Garner's Ferry, River Drive at Sunset, and Zimmelcrest Drive at Bush River Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. We'll continue discussing some of the things we've had throughout the day. That is Elijah and I this morning in our pre-show meeting kind of coming up with an idea of, building a schedule for everybody in the – well, really, Elijah did this part of it. We said we wanted to have a topic today and a discussion today about what it might look like nationally for – all Power 4 schools to play an all Power 4 schedule. Now, you would still play your conference, but everybody would need to play 9 conference games, which means the ACC and the SEC need to come up to a 9th conference game, which, again, just do it. This is I'm some of these things I'm just kind of tired of waiting on. I mean, honestly, just what's the holdup here? But I don't think it's – I think the money part – I think I mentioned this earlier. I think the money part from Disney – is a convenient smokescreen.
Mm-hmm.
It's that some schools in the Southeastern Conference are afraid to lose another game. And that is holding this up as much as anything else. Now, I think secondarily to that, and look, the money thing could be a factor, but it is not the factor. But I think, too, Elijah, it's, again, protection for the losing teams if they play a 9th conference game. Is this going to hamper my overall ability to get into the college football playoff? And I think if we do what you and I are talking about, and we're not alone in this. Again, Nick Saban has talked about only Power 4. I read a quote, y'all, from 10 years ago, from Big Ten media days 10 years ago. So officially 11 years and 11 months ago. From Jim Delaney on his plan back then to beef up Big Ten scheduling. Because he was a little concerned back then as the SEC was really starting to kind of run away with some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And like, hey, if we beef up our schedule, the committee will look at us favorably. And then when they didn't, he was like, what the hell? And I'm with him. I'm with him.
Yeah.
Because you should. And again, did they last year? Elijah and I believe they did to some degree. I know Coach Beamer even the other day said, I'm not sure how much strength of schedule factored into their discussions. I think it did. Again, I'm not sure either, Coach, how much. I don't know where they drew a line. But I do know that based on where the rankings were and who the last 3 out were, they looked at your strength of schedule because there was a bunch of 2-loss teams behind you.
Context clues would tell us.
So they did have it factor in. To what degree, I'm not sure. And there's still a lot of people that think, man, SMU and Indiana played crap schedules compared to some others.
And a reminder, SMU only got in because Bubba Cunningham and the committee, before conference championship games, did publicly say that they will not punish losers for conference title games, meaning they already committed to SMU before that game happened. So SMU's inclusion really is just them sticking to their word.
Yeah. So, again, for Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky, you would keep your permanent opponent from the ACC. So you wouldn't have an ACC rotation. Elijah and I want Bedlam to come back, so Oklahoma would have a permanent Big 12 opponent.
Preserved that.
And even though we're not really talking about other conferences right now, we're focusing on the SEC, but just for the sake of the discussion.
I'll do other conferences too.
Iowa and Iowa State would play every year as Big 10, Big 12. Oregon and Washington would keep their in-state opponents. Notre Dame, Southern Cal would remain. And maybe along the way, we could create a few more. Again, why don't Kentucky and West Virginia play every year? Now, I guess maybe we need to bring back West Virginia and Pitt every year.
Oh, backyard
brawl.
Yes.
So, but we went through a couple of them real quick. Again, and what we did for this thought exercise was attempt to base it on last year's standings and provide scheduling balance. So it's not all goods versus goods and mids versus mids and bads versus bads. It's a mix because from one year to the next, you don't know what you get.
It could change.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it will change. In some cases, it will. Florida State and Purdue, I don't think will go over their league again next season.
No.
I don't think they will. They might, but I don't think they will.
It'd be funny if they did.
Well, if they did, yeah.
But
especially one of them.
So if you want to use another example for Oklahoma, we will preserve Bedlam, and for every year, the Big 12 opponent for Oklahoma will be Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And because Oklahoma State went 0 in their conference as well, that is considered a bottom tier conference slate.
Still don't know how that, of the three, I think that might be the most. Well,
especially considering they're a pick to win the league.
I was going to say, because of where they're,
That was an incredible bedwetting of biblical proportion, really. But for Oklahoma, so you'll get Oklahoma State because that's your low-level game. You will get, in part of my rotation, their top-level conference is the ACC. So I gave Oklahoma Miami.
Ooh.
Would be a pretty fun game, especially if this was played in the 80s, right?
I like name games.
And that is a helmet game right there, brother. And you know what? With their mid-level Big Ten opponent, I said, you know what? How about another good helmet game? Oklahoma and Southern Cal.
Yeah.
So their non-conference slate would be Bedlam, Miami, Southern Cal.
And see, and again, just looking at it the way we kind of, talked about how to do this and what you came up with, which again, tip of the cap, sir. You just created 3 really good TV games.
Yeah, see, fantastic. This benefits everybody involved.
Everybody. All right. I can't remember who gets to play. Oh, Texas gets to play Ohio State, right?
Yep, Texas.
And
got
you
Ohio
had Georgia,
State.
Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Tennessee's. What'd you do for Tennessee?
So Tennessee, their top tier conference is the ACC.
Okay.
Based on how I wrote them down, and I just rotated it.
Okay,
right?
that's fair. Okay.
So Tennessee got the draw of the ACC for the top tier game, and I gave them Syracuse.
Okay.
And they play this year anyway,
right,
to kick off the season. So
hey,
I just thought it was
Fran's
appropriate.
Got something going.
Yeah, they got something going. Oh, he recruits really well.
Yeah.
And then their Big 12 game, which is a mid-level opponent, TCU.
Okay.
And then, just because Wisconsin was bad last year, their low-level Big 10 game is Wisconsin.
And see, Wisconsin is filled with quality football intrigue.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if Wisconsin was bad last year, I think this year, if they played, that'd be an awfully intriguing game. I think it'd be more balanced than a top-level SEC team and low-level Big 10 because both teams have experienced change over these off seasons.
All right, this for fun, because they'll hate this. What'd you do for Kentucky?
For Kentucky, yeah, they are going to hate this. So they get Louisville, which I know they're terrified of.
Yeah, they're already,
they were looking for a way out, but I'm not giving you a way out,
They've already
Mark.
admitted to be.
I'm not giving you a way out.
Yeah.
You got to play Louisville. And because Louisville technically finished I believe they finished in the top tier.
They were third, right?
Yeah, they were third. They finished that top tier. Their mid-level Big Ten game will be Illinois.
Okay.
Now, I was thinking this through earlier. This just came to mind.
Stoops and Bielema?
I might have to swap them for Iowa.
Either way?
Because Iowa would get Iowa State in the Big 12. That's a top-tier game, and they would get Alabama. Right. So that's 2 top-tier games. So I could swap Illinois and Iowa here.
Your final score, Illinois 6, Kentucky 3.
Hey, today is June 4th, which is Happy 6-4 Day to celebrate the 2004 Iowa-Penn State game, where Iowa did beat Penn State 6-4. So I hope you celebrate accordingly. And then Kentucky's low-level Big 12 game will be West Virginia.
Okay, see, there you go.
Which I know those 2 fan bases.
Border rival.
Would absolutely enjoy that game.
And as I mentioned, I forgot that you had told me that already because I mentioned it. We looked it up, and West Virginia and Kentucky have not played football against one another since 1983.
Stupid.
That just seems weird.
Yeah.
Now, look, I know sometimes they're just states that are next to each other and you just can't play. Like when, I don't know when the last time Tennessee played North Carolina. They should probably play more often.
Yeah, I think the last time they might have met was a Music City Bowl.
Maybe a bowl game, yeah. But I liked it, like when Tennessee and Virginia Tech played at Bristol. That was cool.
It was cool. And that's the thing with Tennessee, too. They do border like 8 states.
Yeah, it's hard for Tennessee to play.
Tough.
But anyway, no, I like this. All right, let's one more. How about LSU?
LSU, all right. Their top-tier conference that they will play is the Big Ten.
Okay.
So I gave them Oregon.
Nice. LSU
Oregon would be a lot of fun. Their mid-level
There's a final score like 45-42.
That's right. That's a shootout right
like
there.
That.
That's what the people are here for.
That's the opposite of Kentucky, Illinois.
The executives would pay a lot of cash for that. Their mid-level conference will be the ACC, so I gave LSU Pittsburgh.
Okay. LSU and Pitt.
And then the low-level conference is the Big 12, so they get UCF.
Okay.
Not sexy.
Yeah.
But you got to have
UCF and Cincinnati count.
Yeah, they count.
They count.
But hey, these games for UCF, Cincinnati, big opportunities. Because I assigned Cincinnati to Missouri.
Okay. Not too far away. Good stuff. Again, this is plausible. This is doable, people. We just need to make it happen. All right, Jay versus the Internet is next. Guys, when you get a little older, feeling a little off, it might be time to call Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic so you can get to feeling better. Don't be embarrassed by some of the things that could be happening. You are not alone, and don't wait for it to go away because chances are pretty good whatever it might be that's bothering you isn't going to change over time. Instead, see medical professionals dedicated to getting you back to feeling the way you want to. Dan and his team have been doing this for a long time with fantastic results, and they're ready to help you out as well. So, again, don't be the guy. You know, you say, oh, my dad never went to the doctor. My granddad never went to the doctor. All right, well, now it's time for you to change that pattern. Call right now, 803-875-MENS. Set up a free consultation, and you can learn more about what Dan and his team do to help their patients at themensclinicsc.com. Again, do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Call Dr. Dan Balknight and the Men's Clinic. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the program. Tomorrow,
Mitch Light.
Mitch Light is coming on.
He is.
Yeah.
He had an appointment today that he cannot join us.
Our final poll results are in, and the no votes made a run late. Now, still 56.7% of you say you are in favor of the scheduling format we're discussing, where 9 conference games are supplemented with 1 game each from the other power leagues for everybody in major college football. But 30%, so 56.7 say sure, 30% no. And 13.3% said it depends on the selection. In other words, who is it that I'm going to play? The 30%, again, I'm not picking on you, but I assume you're in the group that just is scared of losing and thinks that's going to cause me to miss out on either the playoff or even a bowl game. And maybe it will sometimes, but
Well, eventually, if more teams lose and things even out, then you're going to see more 5 and 7 teams in bowl games. So it might not cost you a bowl game.
I think you'll just have a lot more 6 and 6s, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah,
man.
certainly.
That's what I think you'll have.
So too.
Yeah. All right. Not a good day for me or the internet. It's never a great day for the internet. Well, no, I'm just kidding.
Some days are better than others, and some days are worse.
I never got around to the tweet that I talked about for the guy who responded to Chipper Jones about Kevin Schnall and the Florida situation.
Oh God, yeah, full of.
And this dude, I was like, man, this is what's wrong with Twitter. But I did. We'll just go to my Twitter feed if y'all want to see what I said. But I'm like, yeah, the sky has been green for years. How can you say? And I'm like, bro, the sky's blue. Got to use some fact.
Equivalent.
Got to use some fact. All right, what do we got?
So last night, we made history. Jay went 0-3, and so did the internet. So congratulations. Everybody give yourself a round of applause for making a little bit of history.
There you go.
So today...
That would have been a good Nick and Warry laugh, by the way.
Oh, it would have been I don't know, this.
Thank you, Nick.
So, Jay, you're sitting at 12-23 right now.
Sure.
Now 11 games behind 500. But after going 0-3 last night, the internet joins you in the under 500 club.
There you
17
go.
and 18.
Right, welcome to futility, kids.
Get off the schneid tonight. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Who wins, Oilers or Panthers? Games in Edmonton.
Give me Connor McDavid and the best Canadian name in the history of Canadian names.
It is the most Canadian name in the history of Canadian
Panthers will win some games, but give me Connor McDavid to win game 1.
And for the second time ever, we have a flat 50-50 tie, 50% tie in the vote. So I'll be the tiebreaker. Last time when it was just me versus the internet, I flipped a coin. But today, I will be the tiebreaker. I picked the Oilers as well. So I'll put down the Oilers.
Thanks.
Number 2, does Chris Sale get credited with a win tonight against the Diamondbacks? Yes or no?
I can't believe I'm at a point in the first week of June where the reigning Cy Young winner playing the Arizona Diamondbacks and in Atlanta, and I gotta think about it. Sure, yes, just because.
Yes,
I mean, come on, Braves, win some games, man.
67% of the internet agrees with you. Their vote also goes to yes.
All right.
And lastly, is there a run scored in the first inning tonight between the Mets and Dodgers?
In L.A.?
In L.A.
Yes.
Jay says yes. 55% of the internet says no.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's our biggest one.
Odds are probably against it, but hey, of late they've been doing it, so what the heck?
That was a 55-45 vote there. I mean, it was pretty close.
Well, go me. Now, does your vote help or hurt me, or does it matter? It doesn't matter, I guess.
I guess it doesn't matter, but, I feel good about the Oilers taking game 1.
Yeah.
I don't know if they win the series, though, because I think the Panthers are inevitable.
I think
and I
Gretzky
hate
can
it.
get an assist. It'll be a good game. All right, see you all tomorrow. Appreciate you.